Hey there, history enthusiasts. Imagine packing your bags, walking up to a ship or a border, and just strolling through. No passport, no customs lines, and certainly no stressful document checks. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, for most of human history, that was reality. People could travel freely, crossing borders without the need for official documentation. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of travel before passports. How did travelers navigate the world without the modern bureaucratic hurdles we face today? Who kept track of who was crossing borders, and how did countries ensure safety and order? Grab your imaginary travel trunks, because this story is packed with twists, turns, and some wild tales of wanderers, adventurers, and the early systems that shaped how we travel today. Let's rewind to ancient times when borders weren't heavily guarded. People could move freely as long as they weren't causing trouble. Many civilizations like Mesopotamia, Egypt, or Greece focused more on trade and diplomacy than strict border control. Travelers carried letters of introduction, essentially VIP passes saying, "This person is trustworthy." In ancient Egypt, traders had clay tablets listing their goods, like grain or beer, acting as early permits. Beer was a major currency, often used for payment, wages, or offerings. It's fascinating how trade, communication, and even beer helped shape early human history and the foundations of travel. Fast forward to ancient Rome, a time when the saying, "all roads lead to Rome," was literal. Roman citizens had a huge advantage when traveling. They carried a small bronze plaque called a diploma, which wasn't just their ID. It also gave them access to inns, food, and, wait for it, fresh horses. Talk about the ultimate VIP pass. This little piece of metal essentially guaranteed a smooth, well-supported journey across the vast Roman Empire, offering a level of convenience and luxury most travelers could only dream of. And if you weren't Roman, well, your journey might get complicated. Foreign travelers could face restrictions, delays, and even hostile encounters. Let's just say borders weren't always friendly, and having the wrong status could make your travels far from seamless. In some cases, crossing borders without the proper credentials meant a long wait, a hefty bribe, or worse, being turned away. Now, if we jump to the Silk Road, things get even more interesting. This massive trade network connected Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, stretching across thousands of miles and linking diverse cultures, regions, and peoples. It was the original version of globalization, complete with spices, silk, precious metals, and, of course, camels. Lots and lots of camels. These sturdy animals were essential for carrying goods across harsh deserts, mountainous terrain, and vast distances. The trade that flowed along this route didn't just involve physical goods, but also the exchange of ideas, inventions, and cultures. Imagine merchants exchanging not just silk, but also knowledge about mathematics, astronomy, and even papermaking techniques. The Silk Road was more than just a path for merchants. It was a conduit for human connection and cultural fusion. But how did travelers manage without a universal passport? Here's the trick. They relied on something even more powerful: reputation. In the absence of passports, visas, or any official documentation, it was trust and personal reputation that mattered most. Merchants, traders, and travelers would carry seals and emblems from their home regions, which acted as a kind of travel endorsement. Think of it as an ancient Yelp review, letting people know you were reliable, honest, and someone who could be trusted to honor agreements. These emblems and seals signaled your status and the respect that came with it, serving as your passport in a world that wasn't yet bound by the concept of modern borders. By the Middle Ages, Europe was a patchwork of kingdoms, each with its own rules when it came to travel. Kings and rulers began issuing safe conduct letters to travelers, typically diplomats, merchants, and those on official business. These letters acted like hall passes, granting protection and permission to cross borders. The idea was simple. If the letter came from a trusted ruler, it should be honored by others. But the power of these documents depended entirely on the ruler's word. If the next ruler didn't recognize the authority of your letter, tough luck. Political influence could make or break your journey. On the flip side, religious travelers had a unique advantage. Pilgrims making their way to holy sites carried badges or tokens from the church. These religious symbols were universally respected and granted special privileges, offering safe passage through territories where others might face resistance. So, when did passports as we know them actually start? For that, we have to thank King Henry V of England. In the early 1400s, he began issuing documents to his subjects traveling abroad, marking the birth of the modern passport system. These were the first official passports, and they looked more like handwritten letters than today's sleek booklets, often detailing the purpose of the trip and granting safe passage through foreign lands. This was an early attempt to control and regulate movement across borders in an increasingly interconnected world. And here's a fun fact. Passports didn't have photos until the 20th century. Before then, descriptions like tall with brown hair or wears a fancy hat had to do the trick. Can you imagine the chaos at border checks? With such vague descriptions, it's no wonder some travelers had to rely on a lot of luck and personal charm to get through checkpoints. When Europeans started exploring the Americas, they didn't exactly ask for permission, but within the colonies, travel was restricted. In New Spain, for example, papers called cédulas were used to control movement, ensuring only authorized individuals could pass through certain areas. These documents were part of a broader system of control and regulation that aimed to maintain order and prevent unauthorized settlements or trade. And let's not forget the Wild West. Cowboys didn't carry passports. They had to rely on their word, their reputation, or, a quick draw. In those untamed lands, identity and trust were built on personal connections, often forged through deeds and actions rather than formal documentation. Whether it was through a handshake or a showdown, your reputation was the most valuable thing you could carry across the frontier. By the 19th century, industrialization and railroads made travel faster and more common, bringing about a whole new era of movement across borders. With people traveling more frequently, countries quickly realized they needed better ways to track who was coming and going, as well as ensuring security. By World War I, passports became mandatory for international travel in Europe, as nations sought to regulate cross-border movement. And guess what? People hated the idea. Many saw it as an invasion of privacy and a cumbersome bureaucratic measure. Sound familiar? The resistance to passports was rooted in concerns about personal freedoms and governmental control. So there you have it, a whirlwind journey through history. No passport required. From clay tablets to royal letters and VIP plaques, humans have always found creative ways to move around. It's proof that the spirit of adventure is timeless. If you enjoyed this trip through time, give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and let us know in the comments, which part of travel history surprised you the most? Until next time, keep exploring, even if it's just from your couch.